Alright, I got the first one drilled and tapped, so we'll go ahead and get a bolt in that one and set it pretty close to where we want it. And then I can mark our next hole and go machine it. Now where do I want this to sit? Right there. Alright, cool. Let's see how much room I got for the linkage here. Okay, so that does not interfere with that. That is good. Cool. It's time to make more holes. So I ended up cutting the original mount out to drop this thing as low as possible. I've decided I'm probably going to keep it unless somebody does want to buy it, even though it's modified a little bit. I'm going to take some C-channel and box in around the top here and then set the bed on top of it instead of it sitting right here because it won't clear. The motor's in the way, but I don't have to shim it up too awful high. But yeah, we're making some good headway here. I'm anxious to get this done, see how fast it is. Alright, so I got the motor all mounted in there. Working on the wiring stuff right now, and then we'll test fire it and got fuel lines hooked up. Gotta get the cable linkages hooked up right, get the exhaust made, and the electrical one's pretty much done. Oh, and I gotta get the chain done. Some little minor stuff. We're getting there. So the way this was set up before was you just turn the key on, hit the gas pedal, and it'll start it just like a golf cart. Well, that's not gonna work with what we're doing, so I've got a lawnmower ignition here. I'm going to put in there and wire it up so we can actually start it, and it'll sit there and run like a gator. So start doing some wiring. So first, I've got all the positive stuff hooked up. This goes over to the original solenoid, which it's not using this anymore, so I unhooked the side that goes off of it that went to the original starter, but that way this power wire here wasn't quite long enough to reach, and if I need to add anything I can just use this post here to add stuff, so that'll work as far as all that goes. So I need to get the grounds all sorted out and hooked up, and when I get all that done, then I can start testing stuff with the meter and figure out what wire does what wire I want to do what, so on and so forth. So I'll get all that stuff lined out now and go through that. So here is the front sprocket that it came with, and I'd put on it, put it all together. I got the rear sprocket down as small as I could get it, but it's still really torquey and no top end. It'll only do like 10-15 miles an hour. So I've opted to make the front pulley bigger, but in order to do this, I'm gonna have to machine this out a little bit so we'll have enough clearance, and I need to cut this down so it's relatively thin like that. It will be a little bit thicker than this because I need a little more room with the half link and the master link to fit between here and where the clutch rides. So I'll make my adjustments by turning this down, and I do need to bore this out a little bit because I bought a 5/8 center hub, which is what this measured, but it's just a hair too tight. I can't hardly get it on there, so I'm going to bore this out a little bit. So a little bit of machining and we'll get this back together and see how fast it goes. So I've decided to go with the 16 tooth instead of the 18 tooth sprocket because, well, I don't have to machine that to get the chain to fit, where if I use that one, there's not enough clearance for the chain to actually fit through here, so I'd have to machine this out, and I don't have a good way to hold this down. So still waiting on my clamp down kit for larger objects and such from the Amazon. So I'll use this, the 16 tooth, and machine this down to fit. We'll go from there. Alright, I got that all TIG welded up. So now it's time to put it together. So we got one more little problem here. The keyway isn't big enough, so I'm gonna have to rebroach this and go from there. Well, it's been a little while since I've been on this project, but I finally got the gear ratio where I like it. I had to machine this down. The reason it's like that is it was one like this, how thick that is. That's how this one was. But I machined it down and turned it in a little bit to get this centered where I wanted it for the front sprocket, because the front sprocket was too short. So with it being too small, it just did not, it had a lot of torque, but it didn't have any top end. It only do like 10 mile an hour. And I had that great big sprocket on there. So since then, I've moved it up to this size, which I can't find the original one. It's been a while since I've been into it. But this is as big as I could go to have clearance with the chain in here. And so I made that one. And then this is the rear sprocket, which that's what the original one was that I made for it, and this is what I ended up with. So now it runs like 25-30 miles an hour. It does pretty good. But I wanted to show all these parts and pieces, everything that's been made. So I'm going to finish getting this back on the machine. I've got to hook some other stuff up, and then we'll get on to test driving it.